Emotions are a wild roller coaster in the Disneyland of life. They can make you or break you. But have you ever wondered what emotions are exactly? I remember that when I was getting into this stuff where I was understanding emotions, there were so different versions of what emotions actually are, that one guy was telling me emotions are these feelings that you feel. The other guy was telling me that emotions are just neurological reactions in your mind. The third guy was telling me emotions are based on perceptions and they're your perception of the outside world. And I mean, there was the definitions when it comes to understanding what an emotion actually is are so varied that you don't know what to understand. Are emotions these feelings that I feel? Are they these physiological reactions? Are they my perception of the world? Are they just are emotions just oxytocin and melatonin? And I mean, are these just what all there is, or is there anything more? Because when I feel love, I don't just think I'm on oxytocin. There's something more happening here. So, what exactly are emotions? Welcome to our series on how to cultivate emotional self discipline. My name is Armughan, and you're watching TruthQuest. And in this video, we're going to talk about what the heck are emotions anyway. So, my understanding of emotion, and when I actually got a satisfied understanding, was not from any one of those. When I was listening to all these different people, that I mean, some of them were in the spiritual area, some of them were more in the psychological, some of them were more in the neurobiological, you could say. So when I was taking all these different parts of what an emotion actually is, or where do they originate in the brain, and when I feel them, what's actually happening, is that a chemical reaction, or what am I basically, right? So there were all these different understandings, and when I actually got a satisfied understanding, was not from any one of them. It was from all of them, because every person was giving me a part of the entire puzzle. And it's actually when you put all of the puzzle together, you actually get to see the full picture. So from one area, emotions are just neurological reactions. They are just chemicals. From another area, they're just electricity that's flowing in your brain. From another area, the more psychological one, it is more of your perception. It is more of how you perceive the world. From a philosophical one, even Aristotle, I think it goes back to Greek times, when I think it was one of the Greek philosophers who talked about there are these different kind of chemicals, not chemicals, but there were different. He gave different colors to different kind of emotion. He was like, when this happens, you feel this emotion. So basically, it dates back to like very early times when we have tried to decipher this emotional thing. But one of the very, I feel, enlightening explanation of what an emotion is what I got from William James. And William James is very modern. He's very famous in the field of psychology, and I personally love his work. And William James actually talks about emotion in a very different way. And what he says is that emotions, I'm quoting him. He says in his book, bodily changes following the perception of the exciting fact, and the feeling of the same is an emotion. And what does that mean? I was like, what are you even talking about, Mr. William James? And it's actually very simple. I'll give you an example. Let's say you are in the supermarket and you are a donut junkie, right? And in the supermarket, or let's make this example even more interesting. Let's say you're driving around the block and you're basically donut junkie. You melt when you see donuts. And you're, after a long day of work, you're pretty beat down and you don't feel good, and you're driving around the block where you see that pink and white sign, actually, I think, Dunkin' Donuts. And it's like, as you just pass through the shop, you feel that smell of the donuts. What are you actually going to do? Yes, you are actually going to get the donut, for God's sake. I know that. But the very first thing that is actually going to happen is, just upon that smell, or just upon the external stimuli, which is the external stimuli in this sense is the Dunkin' Donuts board, and then the smell of the donuts, if you actually smell them, it will actually follow, before your recognition of the fact that this has happened, it will actually follow a bodily change. It's a physiological change in your body that goes on. For example, your mouth might salivate, right? And your mouth might salivate, or something else like bodily changes will actually happen. Your stomach might start gurgling, even if you're not hungry. Stuff will start happening in your body, and William James says that the very recognition, the very cognition of the fact that this is happening, our feeling of the same, when he says that, and our feeling of the same, he's actually explaining that our very cognition of the fact that this is happening is what an emotion is. And to a pretty good extent, he's right. He is on point when he talks about this thing of an emotion, because he goes on to explain, like, what is an emotion. For example, let's go back to ancient times. Let's go back to Stone Age, right? When we were basically hunter-gatherer society. We were living in caves, and we are hunters. And let's say one day, you and I, members of the same clan, we are out to hunt, and we are looking for food. And all of a sudden, there's this saber-toothed tiger that's standing there. And let's say, based on you, let's take your example, your heartbeat starts to, your heart starts to pump really fast, and your eyes start to, like, they really focus, and it's like adrenaline is rushing in your system. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And it's like all these things that happen, and you're like running away as fast as a cheetah, like you're gone. And I mean, I look to my side, and you're not there. And let's say that what I do is, like, yes, I'm in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, I feel fearful, and oh yes, but there are no bodily changes happening within me. Who is the person who has experienced an emotion in the true sense? It's you. You ran away. You're not there. You're actually experiencing fear. You're actually experiencing cortisol, norepinephrine, and we're going to talk about all of that. I know I'm jumping ahead, but we're going to talk about all of that in a minute. Is that you're actually feeling that, but it's not like, I mean, if fear was just a mental construct, if fear was just it is in some sense, but what if when you were feeling fear, your heart did not go up, your eyes did not, your pupils did not dilate, and your body did not turn stressful, and you didn't have all these energy within yourself? Would it actually be fear? William James thinks not. He thinks that it is not actually going to be feared, because the cognition is not enough to make up an emotion. Your brain, your mind is not enough to make up an emotion. Your thoughts are not enough to make up an emotion. Although they can influence the process, but your mind by itself is not enough, right? It's like you just can't think of fear, and basically you can imagine very vivid perceptions, and then that might induce a change in yourself, but it's induction that is happening. It is inducing a change. It's not that if you're let's go back to the saber-toothed tiger. If I stand there, and if I don't feel any bodily changes, and I'm up here, and it's like there's something wrong with my biology, and I'm just thinking about it, what good is it? It's not an emotion. So what makes up an emotion is actually, as William James says, is the physiological changes that happen within you. They actually make up the emotion, and the recognition of these physiological changes are what an emotion actually is. That's William James. And I feel now, there's a very interesting lesson in here, that emotions are very powerful signals. And they're very powerful signals because, let's say that we didn't have emotions. We mammals have evolved this ability. We have evolved those parts of our brains where emotions originate, basically the amygdala and the hippocampus parts of different parts of the brain. We have evolved this to keep us alive. It's a survival mechanism. At very basic, it is a driving fuel, and it's even more than that, and we'll talk about it, but it's the driving fuel that we have. Because, for example, when we were in that situation where we face a saber-toothed tiger and we did not feel fear, let's say our brains were not evolved to the point where we didn't feel that imminent danger, right? Or maybe we just knew about that. In our minds, we knew that there is an imminent danger, but we didn't feel that, right? Because knowing about things is one thing. Feeling it is a completely different ball game. So let's say We just knew that, okay, imminent danger, run, 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 run. That's our mindset. But feelings, they don't even have to say run, 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 right? It's like you just, it happens, it's fast, it snaps. And that's what actually happens. So that basically is a survival mechanism, right? Let's say that you meet this new girl and you're out on a date with her, and you don't actually feel, it's like, yes, you feel in your mind, you're thinking, oh, how nice it is, this is nice, the sunset is nice, the dinner is nice, and the drinks are nice. But what if you didn't feel that? Would that actually be the same experience? Would that actually amount to any experience? I don't think so. So emotions, they are like very, there's a lot of evolutionary biology backing it up. It's like it's a very complex and a very complexly designed it's a very complexly designed system that we have, and it is there for good reasons. Then until it's not, because if it was always there for good reasons, why are we talking about emotional self-discipline? What's all the reason to talk about it? It is for good reasons. It's just we don't know how to use it. We don't know how to make it our ally, not our enemy. Again, borrowing from William James, he also put forth this idea, which I'm highly a component of, that understanding yourself on a biological and neurological basis is very important, because then you can work with your neurology, not against it. You can make it your ally, not your enemy. And most of the I mean, I would say, I can say with certainty that 90% of the people that I've seen around myself, they're actually working against their neurology, not with it, right? Because they don't have that kind of understanding, and not just the understanding, they don't also have that kind of practice, because understanding is one thing, practice is another. They don't have that kind of practice to make their neurology their friend. So it's very important. Back to emotions. Emotions are a powerful signal. What else are they? What are they? One of the understanding of what emotions are, what the heck are emotions, is given by William James. What are the other understandings? The other understanding that comes to us when we are talking about emotions is the neurological understanding. And the neurological understanding is also, I would also call this the chemical understanding. It's really simple. If you talk to a neurologist, or basically I would tell you a study that actually happened. So for a long time, people actually believed that depression was due to a lack of serotonin in the brain. Serotonin is the pleasure molecule. It's the pleasure, and when we are talking about molecules, very basic neurology is that there's these different molecules that go on in your brain, and if there's one molecule is received, it's when one molecule is emitted and it fits into the receptor, it gives a very different signal into your body. It's a pleasurable. If another molecule, it's like every chemical molecule has its own chemistry, and based on its own chemistry, it induces very different feelings. So that's basically basic neurobiology. And the reason I also say the word neurology again and again is because I've heard that maybe if you say it more times, if you say it more than 2 times in a talk or in a podcast or in a video, it can go viral. So fingers crossed. So with that said, so basically we all have these different molecules, and we based on these different molecules. So then if you go to there was this study on depression, and for a long time people believed that depression was due to a lack of serotonin, pleasure molecule. And it was not until recently we found out that it is not actually a lack of serotonin. And the reason, by the way, the reason we formed that logical claim that depression is because of a lack of serotonin was because that when you give people serotonin medicine, you give them artificial serotonin, and they put the pill in their body, and it actually makes them feel good. So you go, voila, it was because of a lack of serotonin, so give them more serotonin so they won't feel depressed. And I feel this on logical terms is such a weak argument, because let's take this example. You go out to a late night party with friends, and you're an introvert like me, so you don't have those kind of social skills where you're too much, where you're enjoying yourself and you're talking to people, you're socializing. You can't do that like me. So I'm not saying that I can't do that, it's just I don't prefer to. Okay, so It's like you're the same. You don't prefer to do that. So you go and you take a shot or two of bourbon, right? Or whiskey or whatever it is that you do, right? I don't do any of these, by the way. So you go and you take a shot of bourbon, let's say. And all of a sudden, you feel that all the shyness, all the social confidence that you were lacking, it's it's all gone. It's like you have such social confidence, and you're out there, you're talking to people, you're socializing, you're having fun, you're laughing with friends, and you're making new friends, and you're having a great time. So can I conclude that your lack of social confidence was because of a lack of bourbon in your brain? Me being a scientist, right? I mean, that is exactly the same way. If I give you serotonin and it makes you feel good for some time, or it alters your brain chemistry for some time, can I actually conclude that depression is because of a lack of serotonin in your brain? It's like, it doesn't make sense. So they actually did a study fairly recently. I think it was last year, where I was reading this article, that they came out with the study that depression is not actually due to a lack of serotonin in your brain. There are different reasons. And if you're just giving pleasure pills, serotonin pills, things like that, it's not going to do any good. So that is basically what the neurological understanding of an emotion is. Depression being an emotion that people fairly experience. Or maybe you can say, if you go to a neurologist and you said that, oh, I'm experiencing such love, you'd say you're high on oxytocin. Or you might say, I'm feeling so good, right? I'm feeling such pleasure in myself. And you'd say, okay, that's dopamine. And if you are saying, oh, I don't feel good, it's like if you say I feel focused, I feel very focused, that's a combination of, if I remember correctly, that's a combination of dopamine, norepinephrine, and a bit of serotonin. So norepinephrine, by the way, is the fear molecule, and in very small, fear molecules also work as focus molecules. Dopamine also work as focus molecules, because when you're feeling pleasurable or focused, you're feeling pleasurable or fearful. What's actually happening is you're actually focusing on one thing. So when you're, by the way, if go back to the saber-toothed tiger, you need focus at that time. You cannot have all these different things coming at you, because your job is only one. You're focusing on survival. Norepinephrine does that. There are also these two other molecules, cortisol and adrenaline, which are also basically, adrenaline shoots you up at same fear molecule that come up in that fight or flight response, when your body basically freezes or it runs away. So that is a neurological understanding of what emotions are. Another understanding is what we talked about is the physiological. That it's like these different things that are happening in your body, like your pupils dilate. And these understandings, by the way, they are not like separate understandings. They're the reason we are talking about them in a separate way is so that you can have the holistic view of how these relate together. And the psychological one is more about the psychological one. The neurological one also includes the parts of your brain which are responsible, where the emotions originate, amygdala, and all the hippocampus, these parts. And the other the psychological understanding of what an emotion is basically, it's more based on perception. It's like, how do you perceive, if there's a thing that is happening, how do you perceive it? It's like, do you perceive it? It's like, what frame do you put it in? What is your mind saying about it? And a lot of your perception actually comes from your history, your past, right? The things that you've already seen, because you form this layer. And this layer is more like the layer, you can call it the layer of your personality, or you can call it the layer of your mind, or it's like you form this layer, and based on this layer, you're judging everything that it's like it colors everything that comes within your perception. So your perception is very highly colored. This is also the reason that people believe that, okay, why do atheists see no God, or why do people who believe in God, they see that everywhere, even if they're taking even if they're looking at the same facts, they would form very different conclusions. The reason is their perspective is completely different. So it doesn't matter whatever fact you give them, their perspective is not going to change, and their perspective won't change until they make a change on the very color that they are perceiving reality through, right? Very interesting fact right there. So I understood this. So your perspective also also shapes your emotions, because it's actually how you see the world. And how you see the world is because is one person might be looking at the world and seeing it as a completely okay, beautiful place if that person is looking at a garden. Another person might look at the garden and still, based on his perception, it's very possible that he might think that this is a very bad, negative place, because he might have spent all his time isolated in gardens, right? That is possible. So I know that's not that good of an example. We're going to talk about, there's a whole video on perception that will come up in this series, and we are going to talk about it. But basically, the psychological aspect says this. And the thing is, it's like your mind and your body. The general understanding that I have is based on all these is like there's this mind and this body. The body includes the biological part, which also includes the chemical parts of yourself. The chemical parts mean the chemical molecules. The physiological parts mean your body and the changes that overgo in your body. Your mind is more of the psychological part. And think of them as a system. Think of them as a system that are actually connected to the point where you cannot demarcate where one ends and the other begins. Yes, you can think about it and you can say, okay, yes, this is my psychological self, this is my physiological self. But basically, they are so much connected they're connected to such a point where a change in one induces a change in the other, right? Like if you change your physiology, it will actually change the way you view the world. And if you change the way you view the world, it will actually change the way you show up in the world. That is your physiology. So we are jumping ahead. This is a topic for another video. But basically, I want you to understand that developing emotional self-discipline, it starts with these basic awareness. It starts with seeing things the right way, seeing and understanding and becoming aware of things in the right way. And this is what this video was about. Now, if you have not subscribed to my newsletter already it's called Truthful Thursdays, where I send bite-sized wisdoms to all of my subscribers. It's completely free, and the bite-sized wisdom is focused on how you can become a better version of yourself. If you have not already subscribed, the link to subscribe to that newsletter is down below. It's totally free. You can subscribe, and every Thursday, I'll be talking to you in your inbox. Now, with that said, watch out for the next video where we are going to talk about emotional intelligence and how you can cultivate that. Till then, I'll see you in the next one, and I hope you have a better understanding of what emotions are now. If you have enjoyed watching this video, don't forget to watch this video on my side. It also relates to physics, philosophy, and personal development. And also, don't forget to subscribe. Continue seeking truth and become a truth seeker.